everyone, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel and welcome to the spring TBR, kind of. And I don't mean kind of like you're kind of not welcome. I mean kind of like this kind of technically isn't a spring TBR. And I know you're probably thinking, okay, false marketing because it says spring TBR up there and you've said the word TBR several times at this point. And just trust me when I say we will basically be doing the exact same thing. It's just going to be a little bit different. So instead of doing a spring TBR, I want to do a spring reading mood board. I got this idea from my friend Kylie over on TikTok. Her username is Kylie Reads Indie. And she came up with this idea a few months ago now, I think. She's been doing them for a while. And basically what she does, instead of having like a TBR or a hopefuls list of books that she might want to read, she instead identifies the kind of moods that she thinks that she'll be in as a mood reader. So like, for example, and this is just a complete example, I don't know if she specifically has done this one, she will say like, this month I want to read a dark gothic book. And then she will kind of find like 3 to 4 books that are on her radar that kind of qualify for that mood genre kind of situation, you know? So I've basically done the exact same thing. I've identified 3 moods that I'm pretty sure I'm going to be in this upcoming season. Of course, as a mood reader, who knows, but this is what I think I'm going to be in the mood to read. And I'm really excited to share these with you guys. I also went onto my favorite website, Pinterest.com, and I made some visual mood boards for us to look at. So that way you kind of just have a visual representation of what the hell I'm talking about, because you don't know what's going on in my head, but maybe these like little vision boards will just kind of help you put all the pieces together. So yes, I have 3 mood boards, and then I do also have a list of books that I am going to put at the very end of the video because they don't really fit into anything, but I have some video ideas that I would like to do with these books. And then also there's a readathon that I am trying to participate in at the end of March, and we'll talk about that more a little bit when we get there. I also want to preface before I really get into it, I know I'm sure I've been talking for like forever at this point, this always happens, but I do just want to preface and say all of these books are like, this whole list is aspirational. Like, this is why I'm making it like a mood board instead of a TBR, because I'm not going to get mad at myself if I don't end up actually reading these books. Like, not all of them. Of course, I would love to read the ones that are in the video ideas. Like, that'd be great if I can actually do what I say I'm going to do. But as for the books that are in the mood boards, like, it's kind of interchangeable with like other books, for example. So this is also a great place for you guys to leave some recommendations in the comments. If there is like any particular mood board that you're like, oh, I know the perfect book that like fits it, I would really, really appreciate it. But yeah, you won't be seeing like a video after this, like, oh, did I hit my TBR? Did I, like, that's not really the point of this. It's just kind of to think like, oh, I think I would want to read this book in the next upcoming month. Just because I know I can't actually really stick to a TBR that well, so I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to do so. Oh, and then also one more thing. This is obviously spring TBR, so I'm thinking like March to like the end of May, like approximately. But let's go ahead and get into the mood boards finally. So the first reading mood board that we're going to talk about is historical romance. Now, if I was more creative, I would have come up with like a really cute name for this, but I'm like really bad at naming things. So we're just saying it's historical romance. And I just think historical romance is like a lot of fun to read in the spring. I don't know if it's because I just happened to read some like around this time last year, and now I just forever associate it with like March and April, but it doesn't matter because that is what I want to read. So yeah, I would love to get to some historical romance within the next couple of months. I have 4 books to talk to you guys for this one. The first book I'll talk about is Devil in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. Now, it is honestly just convenient that the word spring is in this book. This just happens to be where I am in the series, so I think it really just works out really well. This is the 3rd book in Lisa Kleypas' The Ravenels series. It follows a family, and then I think it kind of like extends from there. I'm not so sure, but it's a pretty long series, I believe. I think it's like 6 or 7 books. I read the last 2 last spring, and I just really had a great time. Those 2 books were my first Lisa Kleypas books, and I want to continue with the series. I've been meaning to continue with the series, honestly, but if you know anything about like popular historical romance, it's all traditionally published. And I believe I actually bought the first 2 ebooks, and then I was like, I can't keep doing that for the whole series. Like, I don't want to do that. And so I was trying to get it through my library, and I think I did, but I don't know if it's because I live in a big city, but like there's always some pretty long holds on, I swear, every single book at my library. And it took a while to come in, and then by the time it came in, I didn't read it. So eventually I ended up buying the physical copy. I bought this actually at the Rip Bodice. That's fun. I believe the Brooklyn one. So yeah, after playing like hold tag with it, with my library, I eventually did just buy it. And this book, like I said, it is the third book in the series. And this follows Pandora, who is like one of the sisters that are introduced at the beginning of the series. And she's kind of like eccentric, you know, she doesn't really want to like follow the like societal norms that are going on in like Regency England. And like she is not really that interested in finding a husband, basically. She's actually a businesswoman. She created a board game, which is a very fun thing to have created. I believe in the previous book, her sister's husband owns like a big retail store and like they sell it there, but that's cool. So yeah, she is like, she's a girl boss, I guess you could say. But then she meets Lord St. Vincent, or Gabriel, and it seems like he is just like obsessed with her and like wants to marry her, but of course it's never so simple. It sounds like there's going to be some thrilling aspects to this too. It just seems like it's going to be fun. What I look for in a historical romance is like, honestly, just like wild plots and like witty humor and like some quick banter. Like that is what I look for in a historical romance, and for the most part, Lisa Kleypas has given me that with the first two books in this series. So I'm excited to finally get to this one. The next book is going to be a little bit more familiar to everyone because it is a Bridgerton book, and that is To Sir Philip with Love. This is Eloise's book. I believe it is the 5th book, and I've read all of the previous books except for Daphne, so I've read 2, 3, and 4. I've always been planning to continue this series, always, but I hated the previous book, which is Colin and Penelope's book. Oh my gosh, I did not like that book at all. So I've been very wary to pick this up, and I've heard that people also don't really like this book that much. Like I think for a lot of people this is like one of their least favorites, and that is concerning to me because I feel like a lot of people don't like this book for the same reason why I didn't like the previous one. But I want to finish the series. I want to say I've read them all except the first one. I guess I would have to go back to read the first one if I actually wanted to say that. But again, I don't really actually have interest in doing that. But yes, this is Eloise's story, and she meets Sir Philip. I don't know much about this plot. I know that they write letters to each other, and that Sir Philip is a widower as well. I know that. And yeah, I don't know. If you've never watched Bridgerton or like don't know anything about the series, Eloise is also kind of like the character from the previous book. She's a bit more eccentric. I don't think she's quite as like independent as she is in the series in the book. I think on the show, I think her like attributes are definitely exaggerated, at least from what I've heard and what I've seen in previous books. But basically she is a spinster, and she somehow ends up marrying Sir Philip, and things happen obviously, but I just don't know if I'm gonna like this one. I'm still going to try to read it. I will not be reading this copy. This is actually a first edition copy that I got from Half Price Books, which is rare. I mean, some people try to collect these, but like look at the step back. It is absolutely beautiful, and it's in really good shape as well. So this is like, I mean, this is nearly a collector's item, honestly. I'll probably try to get it through my library. And the next 2 books on this mood board I do own, but they are like at the very tippity top of my bookshelf, and like I need to like bring out like the big step stool to get them. So I'll have to get them some other time, but of course I will have a picture of them on the screen, some sort of visual representation of them. So the next historical romance I'd love to get to is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. I have never read Beverly Jenkins, but I've been really wanting to. She is one of the greats in this genre, and I just would love to get to her. And I just happen to own Rebel, which is why I'm starting with that one. There are, of course, other books by her that I would love to also read. I'll go ahead and read you guys the synopsis for Rebel because it's pretty short. The other ones are really long, so I can just go ahead and read this one to you guys. The first novel in USA Today best-selling author Beverly Jenkins' compelling new series follows a northern woman south in the chaotic aftermath of the Civil War. Valinda Lacey's mission in the steamy heart of New Orleans is to help the newly emancipated community survive and flourish. But soon she discovers that here, freedom can also mean danger. When thugs destroy the school she has set up and then target her, Valinda runs for her life and straight into the arms of Captain Drake Levesque. As an architect from an old New Orleans family, Drake has deeply personal interest in rebuilding the city. Raised by strong women, he recognizes Valinda's determination, and he can't stop admiring or wanting her. But when Valinda's father demands she return home to marry a man she doesn't love, her daring rebellion draws Drake into an irresistible intrigue. That sounds like so much fun to me, obviously, but I also just love that it's set in New Orleans. I love reading books that are set in New Orleans. My brother used to live there, so I went there a decent amount when I was younger, and it's a very special city. So I just love reading books set in New Orleans, so I'm excited to read this one as well. And I'm also, like I said before, I'm excited to just like really also dive into Beverly Jenkins, because I haven't before. I would love to read like Indigo, you know, like read some of her like really popular ones, at least to start with. The next historical romance on this list is definitely the newest one on this list. I mean, the Bridgerton one was published in like 2003. This book was published in 2023, so much more contemporary. It is The Duke Gets Desperate by Diana Quincy. Another book I have been really wanting to read. The little blurb about this says, Diana Quincy returns with a steamy affair between an Arab-American woman who inherits a rundown castle in the English countryside and a duke who inserts the castle is his, in the first book in a brand new Victorian historical romance series. I wonder if there's like more books already out. Doesn't look like the second book is out yet. Oh, the second book comes out in September. Also, the cover is really pretty for the second one. Seems like the book is about this woman. Her name is Raya, and as I said, she inherits this castle. She inherits it from like a distant cousin, and the Duke comes and claims it's his, even though he like didn't have a good relationship with the Dowager Duchess. But of course, he's like next in line, so he like assumes it's his. But I'm assuming what's happening is that like Raya had like a better relationship with this cousin. That is what I'm assuming is happening. I don't know how that works. Are they related? I'm gonna say no. But also like I have no idea how this like estate stuff works. So I could be like totally wrong with my like assumption of like how the plot's gonna go. I'm excited to get to it as well. Diana Quincy is another author I would love to read more from. I generally have like just a huge desire to read like historical romance authors, like the big, like the really well-known ones, because I feel like historical romance is like the foundation of the romance genre. At least, I mean, I think so. I guess you could also say it's like Harlequin romance, and I also would love to read some of that too. But yeah, I just like historical romance's place like in the romance genre, if that makes sense. The next mood board that we're going to talk about is, I guess the best way I can describe it is like whimsy, cozy, light fantasy. So I'm not looking for anything too dark, you know, like I don't need a ton of action. I would like, you know, I want there to be like nature and flowers and just like fun little like quirky things. That is like what I'm looking for. I don't want anything too heavy. I want something like easy to get through. I think that this one is probably best described by the mood board, because obviously there's like so many different types of fantasy, and you know, there's so many different ways you can go because you're like making a whole new world. But I think what I will always like initially think of fantasy is like, you know, like swords and armor and like dragons and fighting, and that's like not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for just something whimsier. I found 5 books that I want to talk to you guys about. I don't know how well these honestly fit. I'm hoping that they fit pretty well, but I just kind of chose some books that I thought wouldn't be too dark of fantasies to get to. The first 2 that we're actually going to talk about in this mood board are middle grade books, because I figured that would be kind of a good place to go with what I'm looking for, is something easier, something lighter. I think inevitably middle grade is going to be just easier to digest. First, I have Percy Jackson, of course. I have the whole series. And I haven't read it. I haven't read it all. I think I've read some of this book, but I never like made any sort of substantial progress into it, honestly. And I would like to change that this year. I would like to read the whole series this year because I own it, honestly. And I just think it shouldn't be too hard to get through since it is middle grade. If you don't know anything about Percy Jackson, there is like a movie that like is not very good, and then a new series that's coming out if you are interested in finding out more. But basically the premise is that Percy Jackson is like half god, half human. He's a half-blood, I believe that they're called, and he ends up going to a place called Camp Half-Blood, I think, and there he meets other kids that are just like him, and then of course adventures await him there, and it just follows him. I don't really know where it goes from there. I've only ever seen the movie, and I think I started to watch the show. Yeah, I'm excited to get to this year. Hopefully, I really want to read the whole series. I think I could read the whole thing in like a week, I assume. The next middle grade book is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is, of course, where the adaptation comes from. Howl's Moving Castle, the Studio Ghibli movie. My favorite Studio Ghibli movie, actually. And I only watched it for the first time pretty recently, actually. So I think that's saying a lot. I think this is like exactly kind of what I'm thinking about. You know, it's fun and like light and just, you know, I don't know. I just think this is what I want to read. I'll go ahead and read you guys the synopsis in case you haven't seen the movie before, because it's also not too long. Sophie has the great misfortune of being the eldest of 3 daughters. Destined to fail miserably, would she ever leave home to seek her fate? But when she unwittingly attracts the ire of the Witch of the Waste, Sophie finds herself under a horrid spell that transforms her into an old lady. Her only chance at breaking it lies in the ever-moving castle in the hills, the Wizard Howl's castle. To untangle the enchantment, Sophie must handle the heartless Howl, strike a bargain with the fire demon, and meet the Witch of the Waste head-on. Along the way, she discovers that there's far more to Howl and herself than first meets the eye. I think this would be really fun to get to. I've been wanting to read this book for years as well. I think ever since I watched the movie. And so if I could get to this year, I will feel accomplished. Next, we have 2 YA books. We're slowly going up and then we'll get to the adult books at the end. We have 2 YA and then we have 2 adult. Oh, sorry, there's 6 books. This next YA book is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Bought this book at Home Goods. It's like the only reason why I have it, because I saw it at Home Goods and I was like, what is that doing here? And I picked it up. I mean, it was $12.99. That's not a bad price for a hardback at all. Yeah, Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I don't know much about this. I know that it is similar to that other book that I read last year called Phantasma by Kylie Smith, and I didn't love that book. But I didn't love that book because there was just like kind of like too much smut. Like they would be doing stuff in the plot and then they'd need to like go bang it out. And I'd be like, can we please focus? This is a YA book, so there's not going to be any of that. So I'm thinking that I'm going to like this more. And if I'm basing it off the fact that it is supposed to be similar to that book, then there are deadly trials and probably a romance. Caraval, I don't know. Is there like pirates? I think I always thought that there was like pirates here, but I'm not sure. And Caraval is actually related to the other YA book that I want to read, which is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. It's a book that I've technically already read. I read the first book in that series a little over a year ago now, and honestly, I just don't remember it that well, so I would have to reread it if I want to do that. But I've heard that you should actually start with Caraval, because even though they're like 2 separate stories, there are some like Easter eggs and stuff like that, so I'd love to hear from you guys if you think that I should wait to read Once Upon a Broken Heart and start with Caraval. Maybe that makes more sense, but I do already own the whole series on ebook for Once Upon a Broken Heart. So we'll see what I end up getting to. Again, I would have to reread the first book, so that is why that book is on this list in particular. And while it wasn't like my favorite book ever, I did have a lot of fun reading it. It's like very magical, and like I think it's like exactly kind of what I'm looking for. The vibes in that book are like so good. I think Stephanie Garber did a really good job of making it like very atmospheric and just very beautiful. Also very light again, which is something that I think I'd be interested in. I think I would like to try that series again. From what I remember, it follows the main character. Her name is Evangeline, and she is like in love with someone, and she finds out like he's getting married to someone else, and she ends up kind of striking a deal with, oh, what is he? He's like a death god or something. Let me find out. He's the Prince of Hearts. That's right. He's the Prince of Hearts, and I believe his name is Jax. But obviously it's not so simple as like her striking a deal with him, and yeah. Okay, we're finally at the adult books on this list. The first one I want to talk about, I wasn't so sure if it fit here, but then when I read the synopsis, I felt a bit more confident about it. And that is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I have never read anything by Adrienne Young, so it would be a first for me. The reason I wasn't sure, I was like, I don't know, maybe it's like a bit darker than I'm thinking it is, but on the back it talks about things like a flower farm. And didn't I say flowers before? It sounds just like a really good time. It sounds like fun. Here it says, with The Unmaking of June Farrow, Adrienne Young delivers a brilliant novel of romance, mystery, and a touch of the impossible, a story you will never forget. Sounds good to me. Also, I like love this cover. I just really like how this cover looks. I think a lot of her newer books kind of look like this, so. And then finally, the last book on this mood board is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Worlds by Heather Fawcett. I recently read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I really had a great time. It was so fun, and I want to continue the series. I've decided that I'm going to only listen to them on like audio, just because I mostly listened to the first book on audio, even though I did have the physical book, and I felt like the audio experience was pretty good. So I'm going to continue doing that. Also, I like have a weird thing with the covers. Like, I don't like the third cover of the US versions, but I don't want to like have to rebuy the first one. So I'm just going to listen to the audiobook, and I'll be happy with that. If I end up like loving it a lot, then maybe I'll purchase the series, but as of right now, I have no plans to do so. Emily Wilde, like the series as a whole, follows Emily Wilde and Wendell Bamblebee. They both study fairies across the world. The first book takes place in like a very like wintry, icy place. And I think that the second one does not. I think it's a bit springier from what from what I've seen. I think it takes place like pretty soon after the end of the first book as well. I'm really excited to continue the series. I definitely want to know what's going to happen. I want to see Emily and Wendell's story fold out. If it's anything like the first book, I assume the first half will be a bit more vibes, less plot, and the second half will be much more plot driven. When I was reading the first book, I was saying that like something happened, and I kind of realized like, oh, that is where the plot's going to go. So I'm interested to see if the plot is going to go where I think it's going to go, or if I'm just like completely wrong. We are at the very last mood board in this video. After that, we're going to talk about just a list of books that I would like to get to that don't fit into any of these categories. But this next one I'm really excited for, because somehow this genre has kind of become like my most read genre. I don't know how it happened, but we are indeed talking about like spring, summery, contemporary romance. Like I said, somehow I became a huge contemporary romance reader. I think when I started really getting into romance, I was reading everything, like literally everything, like monster romance, alien romance, dark romance, fantasy, honestly not as much contemporary, but now it is like all I read when it comes to the romance genre. This one's really fun for me. I don't know, it just is. I put spring/summer because I would like to also maybe get a couple summer books in here so that I can have some to recommend to you guys. I already think I have a pretty good list of some summer romances that I can recommend to people, but I can always have more. So let's go ahead and get into the list. The first book is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Now, I've always considered myself to be a huge Elsie Silver fan. Up until this series, I had read all of her books that she had like ever published, and now I can't say that because she's published 3 books in this series now, and I haven't read any of them, so I would like to start. This is the first book, Wild Love. It follows Ford Grant, who is the brother of Willa Grant from the second book of the Chestnut Spring series, my favorite Elsie Silver book. That book is like a masterpiece. And Ford is like a billionaire, of course, and he's also a single dad. I feel like I heard that like all of the books in the series follow single dads, but I could be very wrong. And then our FMC Rosie, she is like a big town girl in a small town, and I feel like I've just completely described the plot to you just using these tropes. Honestly, I don't feel like there's much I need to say for you. I don't know, is she his nanny? Okay, it doesn't say anything about nanny, but it looks like she is going to work for him. So there could be like some employee boss stuff in here. I don't want to say that I know it's going to be good because I feel like I've heard less people rave about the series as I have for like Chestnut Springs. You know, people love that series. So I don't want to automatically say like, oh, this book is incredible, because I don't know, but I do think I'm going to like it. Like, I'm not worried that I'm going to dislike this book. The next book I have is one I have been meaning to read for a long time. This book is probably like a huge fan favorite, and that is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This is the second book in the Part of Your World series. It goes after Part of Your World and before Just for the Summer. Both books I have read, so I'm just like missing the book in the middle. Like I said, I think this book is like a fan favorite for people. People really, really ride for this book. And just from the other books that I've read from Abby Jimenez, I totally get it. Like, her books are very, very well done. Like, yes, they are fluffy contemporary romances, but I think she just does a really good job of like adding a lot of heart to her stories and like creating characters that are very flawed. Yours Truly follows 2 doctors. It follows Brianna and Jacob, and like I said, they're both doctors. They work at the same hospital, and Brianna is just like not a fan of Jacob until he apparently writes her this like really nice letter, and it says here that he is going to donate a kidney to her brother. That's whoa. that is really nice. This is a book that I can confidently say is going to be good. The last one I'm like less sure, like I don't want to say for sure, but this book I feel like I know I'm going to love. I know that it's just going to be a really good book. So another safe bet, but a bit safer of a bet, I guess you could say. This next book is probably a bit more on the summery side, which I'm not mad about at all, actually. Even though I'm not a summer person at all, I like summer books, so I'm excited to get to this. And this is The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. I have heard that this book is very similar to Happy Place by Emily Henry, because there are two exes that kind of have to like work together, and I think pretend that they're still together. But in this case, instead of going to like a house in Maine with their friends, they are going to a wedding, and they're like having to work together to make sure that the wedding does like not fall apart. I liked Happy Place. I know that not everyone does, but I liked Happy Place, and I think I'm going to like this one as well. I read like a ton of second chance romance last year, and I had a really good time doing it. It's probably one of the tropes that's like further up there on the list for me. Again, I'm excited to get there, and I mean, it looks so summery. I read Jessica Joyce's other book, You with a View, last year, and that book was super summery too, and I liked it as well. While it didn't like blow me away or anything like that, it did what it needed to do. It was just like an easy read. So I'm hoping that this one will also be just as easy. Clearly it takes place at like a vineyard or something like that, and I think that is a really fun setting to have. And if it does end up turning out that like it's a fun setting, I think that's going to be Jessica Joyce's like strong suit, because You with a View had a really fun setting as well. And now finally, the last book on all of the mood boards for this video is Tastes Like Shakar by Nisha Sharma. This is the second book in a series. The first book in the series is Dating Dr. Dill, a book that I gave 5 stars. I really enjoyed that book. All of the books in the series, they are technically like Shakespeare retellings. I don't know much about Shakespeare, honestly. Like I don't know too much about his plays. I know the basics, but I guess Dating Dr. Dill was also retelling, and this is one as well. This is a retelling of Much Ado About Nothing, and coincidentally, this also follows a wedding at a vineyard, which I did not know when I picked it up. I just know that I liked the first book, which is why I picked it up. Of course, it is a little bit different. Our main characters in this, they are not exes. They do not like each other. They're both like best friends of the bride and groom at the wedding, and the bride and groom are the characters from the first book. And yeah, they don't like each other, but they have to work together, and that is like what this book is going to be about. I have pretty high hopes for this one too, actually, just because I did really love Dating Dr. Dill, and I'm hoping that I like this one as well. And that is it for my like structured mood boards that I have in this video. I do have a couple other mood boards, but I don't have any books for these. So these are just some moods that I think I could possibly be in, but I'm not sure what to read. So I'm definitely asking you guys for recommendations for these. If you have anything, I will take it and try to read it, because for all of these, it's like I always just want like one book. You know, like one book will satisfy my mood and then I can like move on. But I just know that I will kind of get into one of these moods because I feel like I always am, and I can never find a book to fulfill them. So yes, I will also put on screen our little visual mood boards for these as well. The first one is dark romance. And yeah, that's really vague, really vast, but like I don't know how else to describe it. I'm always looking for a dark romance. I will like start one, and then I always end up DNFing it within like 10%, because there's always like something that's like a little cringy, or just something I really don't jive with. I feel like I will read a dark romance and the FMC's like, I love unicorns and rainbows and stuff, and like there's nothing wrong with liking those things. Those things are great. But I feel like the main character always becomes kind of like a bit of a pick-me, and I don't want to read that. I like reading girls that are just like other girls. That is something that I run into. And then I think even a bigger issue is there's too much smut too fast. Like I don't think it matters that like there is a lot of smut. I just don't want it to happen so soon. I feel like I need at least 35%, at least. But like sometimes within like 10%, they're like, you know, they're going at it. And I'm like, you don't know each other. You don't know each other. I have read dark romance where like it is immediate and it's like contingent on the plot and it makes sense, but sometimes it doesn't make sense. And then another little mood I think I could be in is gothic romance. I've read quite a few of these and I do always enjoy them. but I'm always looking for more. Books that I did like were like Nocticadia. I can't think of any more, but there's other ones that I like. Nocticadia is like a masterpiece, so that one I really, really like. Yeah, I just love dark romance. Again, sometimes it can be a little cringy at times. I run into that less than I do with dark romance, but it does happen sometimes. I think a gothic romance has to be kind of long, actually. Like I think I need time to like really see that relationship develop, and sometimes they're a little too short. So that is my thing with gothic romance. Finally, I bet I can guarantee you that this will be on every single one of these mood boards because I'm always looking for it, and that is Fantasy Academy. I'm always looking for Fantasy Academy. Yes, I've read Zodiac Academy. I've read Zodiac Academy multiple times. And I have like a weird obsession with that series. It's like unexplainable. I'm always looking for something that can kind of fill the void of that. And I know I'm not the only one. I feel like online, I always see people like asking for something similar to Zodiac Academy, and like it doesn't exist. But I wouldn't even say I'm necessarily looking for something that's identical. I'm just like looking for a good Fantasy Academy book or Fantasy University book. Like I'm always looking for something like that. Usually I will read like the first book in one of those series and then like DNF it. I will read just about anything at this point to try to find something that works. I will read Why Choose. I will read MF. I will do anything. I will say I've tried like Tessa Hale. It didn't work out for me. I think I tried like Midnight Fae Academy. It didn't really work out for me. So yeah, but if you guys have any like secret books out there that are like really good Fantasy Academy books, please let me know because I've been looking for them for years. And now we are finally just at the list of books I have for some video ideas and for the readathon that I'm planning on participating in at the end of March. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. I'm just going to read these off to you guys. And also if you have any guesses as to like what the video ideas I have are, that would be really fun. But yeah, let me go ahead and show them to you guys. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Flirting with Disaster by Nina Kumar. Lot by Brian Washington. Terms of Endearment by Larry McMurdy. Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. And finally, Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. And now I'll go ahead and talk about the readathon that I want to participate in at the end of March. It is the Trans Rights Readathon, and it runs from March 21st to March 31st. And I'll link their Instagram down below. All of the information for it is down there. There are 5 prompts for it, and I will put them on the screen. And then there are like 25 bonus prompts as well. I haven't solidified my TBR for that like at all. I kind of just grabbed what I knew would work from my shelves, but I need to really like sit down and figure out what I have that I can read, and then also like if I can get anything from the library, even if it's a little bit difficult for me to. So I still need to finalize it. So these are just the books that I kind of picked up a bit quickly for the readathon. First I have Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This is a book that would probably be better read like in the fall, but I'm just going to try to get to it for this readathon instead. I've heard this book is phenomenal, so I'm excited to get to it. And then I have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Kweke Emezi. Probably every video that I've made or every TikTok that I've made that's like, you know, my monthly hopefuls or monthly TBR or whatever, I always end up putting this book on there, and I'm just so bad at sticking to a TBR, I never do it. So hopefully this is the time that I do. And then this next book I'm pretty sure counts. I've seen other people talk about it in like their TBRs for previous Trans Rights Readathon. I have Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed. I have this book. I think it counts, but I need to make sure because like I said, my TBR is not finalized. I'm going to go onto like the story graph for the readathon, and apparently on there's a bunch of different recommendations for all of the different prompts. So I want to make sure that I craft a really good TBR for that. Yeah, I'm planning on doing it from March 21st to March 31st, hopefully. I'll probably be talking more about my experience with that on TikTok, so you guys can definitely follow along there if you'd like. Those are all of my mood boards and all of the books that I want to try to get to in these next few months. Like I said, this list is very aspirational. I really hope I can stick to the books for like video ideas. I think that those are probably going to be a higher priority for me over the books that are in my mood boards, just because I do want to try to, you know, make some fun content. But either way, this was really fun to make. I had so much fun making the little vision boards, and I felt like 3 mood boards was like pretty small, but I ended up including a lot of books, so maybe not. I will say I'm probably least inspired by the season of spring, even though I am a spring in terms of color analysis, mentally, and psychically, I am not a spring. I am definitely an autumn and a winter, but I'm also like really into summer books. So I have a feeling that all of the rest of the mood boards for the year will be a bit more exciting. And as you can see, I'm losing my voice. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are interested in seeing if I end up reading any of these books this season and you want to follow along, that would be really great. But if not, either way, I'll see you next time. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. Bye.